It will make a huge difference, and it will make you feel like it will feel like a palace. It will feel like the most amazing hotel room you've ever entered. It will feel like something so special that you just can't wait to run and jump and sit and hang out in your space, because you've created something that didn't have anything to do with the size. You just use the size that you have to create something really magnificent for yourself. Hi, and welcome to the House of Valentina. I'm Valentina, and today I'm sharing my big solutions for your small spaces. I know that people like to say that size matters, but I don't care what they say, because I prefer to believe that good things come in small spaces, and there is absolutely no reason why you should feel limited by a small space. You can do amazing things, and I hope after you've watched today's video that you will feel not only inspired, but empowered to create beautiful, elegant, and sophisticated spaces that you will be thrilled to come home to every single day. So let's dive into today's video. Our family and I really do understand what it's like when you're working with a small space. We've lived in 24 different places. Many of those have been overseas. We've lived in Europe, we've lived in Africa. We've had spaces as small as 1,000 square feet or even less as a family of 5. And at times we've had spaces that were like 500 square feet or even smaller. Some I was too afraid to even measure. But it's okay. I've never felt like having a small space was something that could limit me on my design. I tried out a lot of things that I felt didn't work for me. So through a lot of trial and error, I've been able to come up with a little bit of a formula that I always use when I'm either designing a space for a client that's smaller or for myself, because we have small spaces even within the current home that we have. Our current home is 3,600 square feet, and that's double any house or home that we've ever lived in. So we feel it's palatial, this is still small compared to a lot of the homes that we work with. We work in the luxury market here in Atlanta, and so even we use these tips and tricks ourselves, even our own home. So don't let size dictate your design. See, I'm already jumping in. There you go. If that sounds like something that you're interested in, if you want to learn more and you love to learn about design and creating that beautiful home, make sure you hit subscribe and give the video a thumbs up, and let us know down in the comments how big is small for you and what made you interested in this video. We'd love to hear that. So let's jump into these tips, because apparently I'm gonna get ahead of myself if I don't hurry up and get into them. The first thing that I have learned is the most important thing that you can do for yourself. Really, it's any size home. It's just something that you need to do either way, but especially when you're working with a small space, you need to measure out your space. A lot of times we just forget, and we decide we want to buy a sofa and we try to measure and figure out if it's going to fit. Sometimes if you're like us and you're just getting started, you forget to do that, and you end up having to move your furniture from side to side to get through doorways and other things. You don't want to have to do that. A lot of times when you're working with a small space, you're not going to be able to just go and purchase standard size furniture. You may need something very specific. So measure out all the walls, measure out all the windows, all the doors, the doorways, whatever you are working with. Measure everything out, because it's really important to understand the space that you're working with, because you're gonna have to be really careful about the furniture that you purchase and how big it is, and everything is going to really matter in a small space. If you have a piece of furniture that you really want to use in the space, make sure you measure that as well, because you really need to be able to space plan and think through, what am I actually doing in this space? The second thing that I like to do is that I really like to plan out the space and come up with the ideal plan for the room. A lot of times we think it's a living room and I need a sofa, I need a chair, and I need a TV. But you really need to think through, how many people need to sit in here? How many people am I realistically going to entertain here? Am I gonna watch TV all the time? How does the room need to be oriented if I am gonna be watching the TV in here? If the TV isn't the most important thing, then what do I need this room to do? And that's just a living room. But what about a dining space? How many people are actually going to sit in the space? How many chairs do I need? And you need to be able to understand the ideal function of the room before you even start thinking about the style, before you even start thinking about the pieces themselves. You really want to come up with, this is ideally how I would use the space. I do the same thing in my own home when I'm thinking about Christmas and my entire family is over. How am I going to use my family room on that day? Do I have enough chairs? Do I need that many chairs for everyday life? What if I don't entertain my family every single day? Do I need to have 40 seats? I may not need that many on an average day. And so trying to think through the function of the space for the everyday, for the special occasions, this will really help you kind of uncover how you're going to use your space, because when it is small, every little bit is really going to count. And so you're really gonna have to make sure that what you're picking and what you're choosing is going to give you the function that you need for that space. Don't forget that you can also sell things that just don't work for your space. As you come up with that ideal plan, you may realize that the sofa that you have is just too big and you just need to sell it, or you need to swap with a friend, or it needs to go into storage somewhere. Because a lot of times what we do is that we limit ourselves trying to only use what we have. And we can get creative. Even if you don't have a ton of money for your space, if you're working on a really tight budget, you can always find someone else's sofa that they're reselling. Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. I think we're all kind of getting addicted to it now. It's like, wow, it's easy to sell and you can always just grab something different. But you really need your measurements and you need to decide, this is what I actually need for the space, and don't be afraid to get rid of things that aren't gonna work and start over. I think that's probably the biggest fear that a lot of people have. They feel like they just need to use what they have, and sometimes it's just not realistically gonna be the best thing. So don't be afraid, just start over, grab something else. It isn't wasteful to create a space that you will be excited about coming home to. That is an investment in yourself. That is an investment in your personal, I really believe this is an act of self-care, to give yourself a space that really gets you excited. It really is super important to have those spaces, and the investment that you're making in yourself is gonna be worth every last cent. So even if you are just selling and getting something completely new, that's okay too. You wanna make sure you get what's gonna work for you and for your space. As you begin space planning, one of the things that I've noticed is that when you have a small space, people tend to do the two biggest mistakes, and that is to either way oversize their furniture and the things that they've put in it, or they way undersize. When you end up in either camp, it's not a good thing. So a lot of times people will say, well, I just need a recliner. Well, a recliner actually requires an enormous amount of space if you really think about it. Because what are you gonna do? You're going to lay backwards. So you've gotta have the chair in a place where it can also lay all the way back and your feet to come up. So a recliner may not actually work in your space, and you may need to think about, maybe you need a sectional with a chaise that will really fill that space out, and it will give you a place to actually lean back, and it will be more clean lined. It'll really fill out the entire space, not just one little section. But if you're trying to fill that one corner with a recliner, how are you gonna get a sofa in there? How are you gonna get everything else into that space? So really think through whether you're being realistic about how you're actually going to use the space, and if the size of the things that you wanna put in it are even realistic at all. Now the opposite problem sometimes is also that people tend to think, well, it's small, so everything needs to be small. And I think that's also just as big a mistake, because when you use things that are too small for your space, this space just actually feels smaller. You really want to fill the space out. You still, oh, sorry, it's utterly pouring outside suddenly. Oh my gosh, that scared me. Yes, so you want to make sure that if your space is on the small side and everything in it is really small, it will actually make your space feel smaller. because you haven't really filled it out. You still need to have a walkway where you need to be able to actually physically walk around your spaces. I personally like to have at least 2 feet between the sofa and the coffee table. I like to be able to walk around my bed and actually get in. When we design the spaces, we're really trying to leave a walkway of at least 35 inches, 36, a little bit more is even better. So you've got to kind of space plan and figure out, you need room to move around the space. So you don't want to fill it out to the point that you can't do that, but you also don't want to have a tiny little coffee table sitting like an island with a little rug in the center. That's not good either. It just makes the space feel really small, and obviously that's what you don't want. So yeah, we'll just avoid that one. You guys know that I love high drama. I mean, who are we kidding, right? I'm standing in a nearly black room with a dramatic piece of artwork. I like to play with drama. So when you're working in a small space, it's great to use drama and it's great to use some powerful tools. But I don't think that the rug is always the best place to start. I think, and this is just a very practical tip, so I really think that having a neutral rug on the floor and not something that's super crazy and busy, you don't want to put your attention on the floor in a small space, especially because that brings your eye down. And it's good to think about that even in a big space, but when you have a big space, a lot of times you have big windows, you have a lot of light that you're dealing with. And a lot of times when you're in a small space, you don't have all of that there. You might have some windows, but it's still a small space. So drawing people's and even your attention to the rug means that you've got the eye going down. We really want to bring the eye up. So think about using a neutral rug. It'll really help to give you a really soothing and sophisticated look in your space, and it will really set the stage for the rest of the room. That way, and make sure you buy a rug that's big enough. That's another one too. You want to make sure again that you haven't created your little island. You want to really fill out the room. I like to have all the fronts of the furniture sitting on the rug, and then if you have maybe a planter or something else, that doesn't have to sit on the rug, but the fronts of everything need to at least be on that rug, and that'll think about how you can measure out your space and figure out how big those pieces are and then how big your rug needs to be. But having it neutral and having it really fill out the space will really give you a really good foundation to build the rest of the room upon. Now that you have a really good foundation, the next thing that you need is to have something that really draws your eye up, which is the curtains. You really want to make sure that you hang them as high as you possibly can. A lot of times people will ask me, they'll say, I don't understand, how high does that mean? Do I really hang the curtains at the ceiling? We almost always hang them at the ceiling, right below the trim. If you have some trim work in your room, we'll hang it right below that. And even if you have an arch window, even if you have something that's kind of going on with the window, we're still gonna hang them that high and we're gonna let them drape down. Now, occasionally, if the window has a really dramatic arch and it feels like it's just gonna feel weird for the curtains to be above that, sometimes we'll hang it right below the arch and just let them drape down from there. The best case scenario is to try to get them as high as you possibly can so that it will really bring up the height of the room. So we've got the neutral base and something really high, and what it does is it really draws your eye up and it just makes your vertical space seem so big. And I know it works because when we lived in Copenhagen, my parents came to visit and they walked in the door and they were like, what? How is it this small? It looked so big. So yes, I know that it works to hang your curtains high. Don't be afraid to use luxurious materials for your curtains as well. IKEA, I'm telling you, IKEA has some of the best curtains. If you're living in a temporary space, because a lot of times small spaces will be apartments, there'll be something that isn't a permanent home for you. So a lot of times you're not wanting to spend a ton of money on curtains because they're not permanent. Now, if you're going to stay in your small space long term, you can go for custom curtains and it will really make a huge impact in your space. But if you're not there, go to IKEA and buy their velvet. We've done a ton of these videos. So if you haven't checked out our luxury IKEA videos, you'll find a ton of tips there. And I linked to the exact curtains that I use in those videos so that you'll know which ones I look for. But the velvet ones and the twill ones they have are really, really good. They're really affordable. And you can just take the little, they sell the, what's it called? What's that stuff called? The hemming tape, yes. The hemming tape, you can use the hemming tape that they give you and just hem them. And then if you go to the next place, you can just take the hemming tape out and reuse those same curtains. So hopefully you'll be in your house a long time, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way. And that way you can actually make a good investment in your curtains and take them from one place to the next. A lot of people believe that you can only use light colors in small spaces. I think that you have to go bold either way. You either need to use a really light color in a small space or you need to go really dark. It's that no man's land in between that can just kind of bring your space down. It's not really bold enough to really catch your eye and to feel cozy because it's not really dark enough to feel cozy, but then it's not light enough to really make an impact either. So that middle ground is where I really try to avoid. I would rather use white walls, which is I did a lot in my home in Copenhagen. We didn't have a lot of light there. But even when I'm working with my clients here in Atlanta where it's sunny all the time, if you're living in a loft, if you're living in a condo, if you've got a small room in your big house, a lot of times light walls can be a great solution. Doesn't mean that they have to be white. Just light is also a good option. Something with a little bit of a little color in it can actually bring a little bit of sophistication to the space. And also a dark color can also make it feel very cozy. The one thing that I would say is that when you choose your dark color in a small space, look at your lighting and understand that maybe, like this room, this is not actually black. A lot of times people think that the room is actually black when it's actually a medium gray. So it really just depends on your space and the kind of lighting that you have. You may need to take take a couple steps down. You may not want to paint it black. There's actually a color by Benjamin Moore called black, which is what we used on our front door. And it is so pure black. There is really like a complete absence of light. You don't necessarily want that color for your small spaces, especially if you're doing a small bathroom or laundry room that doesn't have a lot of light in it. I actually use medium gray colors that just appear darker in the space. So play with your chips, definitely put samples up, but think about going to the extremes on your paint colors because I think that you'll find that it really will pay off for your small spaces. Everything that they say is true about mirrors. Mirrors really do help a small space feel bigger. So when you think about decorating your small space, don't just think about a traditional full-length mirror. Maybe you need more than one. Maybe you need to fill out the entire wall with mirror. I've seen that a lot of times, that was something that they did a lot previously in homes where they would build out the dining room and put a big mirror in it. I was thinking about our Restoration Hardware visit that we did. It's been a little while, but we did a video where we were walking through the Restoration Hardware outlet, and in one of their showrooms, they had the antique looking mirror that was the whole entire wall, and I pointed it out in that video. And it was so beautiful. It really caught your eye. It really just brought your attention to it. It really made the space feel special. And that's what a mirror can do. It's not only about reflecting light, which it does do, but it also brings a sense of elegance and glamour. And when you're dealing with a small space, what you put on your walls is really, really important. And how you choose the pieces and what you're choosing really becomes so important. So I suggest thinking about floor length mirrors. If you're working on a really tight budget, you could maybe use a series of smaller mirrors that you put together and you kind of group them. That could give you a nice big wall full of them. And then you can actually put your furniture in front of it. So don't be afraid to really go bold and go big on your mirrors. And yes, no, not like the little ones yeah, that's kind of not gonna really help much. That's not really gonna help you. But I see that a lot of times in bathrooms where we've got, you know, a mirror and then we've got a small one. Think about double duty on your mirrors as well. I think the mirror TVs can be a really good space saver if you need your room to function in 2 different ways, or a beauty light mirror that you can use in your bathroom that will really just help you get a lot of function out of your pieces. So yeah, think about mirrors because it really is true, and it really will add a lot of light, and it will make your space feel really special as well. I always say upscale, upsize, up high in small spaces. So tip number 8 is to upscale the things that you have in your space. Upscale means that you're really upscaling the items, not scale-wise. We're not talking about the actual size, but the sophistication of the items themselves that you're putting into the space. I think a lot of times we feel like, oh, it's little, therefore I can't put much in this. I'm gonna be really practical. You don't have to be that practical. If you're gonna put a coffee table book into your space, go big. Go bold, go with something really beautiful. You need to make use of the things that you put into your space. They need to work hard for you. Go ahead and buy a bigger vase that will really fill out the space, and buy larger, more upscale. I'm getting ahead of myself. See, they all kind of go together, don't they? Yes, you want to think about the sheen of your items, and the kinds of items that you're putting in will have such an impact. I think that's one of the benefits of a small space. I have found, even in having 3,600 square feet, that I really struggle to feel like, wow, I need a lot more stuff to put into this space. When I had small spaces, a little went a long way. So buy great investment pieces, but don't, see, I'm getting ahead of myself. See, I can't do it. They go together. That's why I put them together. So definitely think through the sheen and the quality. You can add those items in, and your money is really gonna go so much further. So buy the bigger one. Don't go too, oh my gosh, I can't help it. We're just gonna put them together, okay? We're just gonna put those two together, that you need to upscale and upsize. Those two things are going together because I'm helping you pick the items themselves. So your lights, go ahead and buy a bigger lamp. Don't buy too small of a lamp, but also think about the sheen of the lamp and the style. You might only need 1 or 2 lamps for your space, so you can invest a little bit more money into something that's really got a high quality to it, and it's going to completely transform your space. So then, of course, on top of that, you don't want things to be too little, because then you just have lots of little things, and it seems like the space just kind of comes down. So yes, we've combined them, and I really think that it will make an enormous amount of difference. You really think about the overall aesthetic of the space. Think about, you've got a really cool neutral rug, you've got really high, beautiful curtains, and then you have a really great placement of your furniture that really fills the space, but it's not too cluttered. And then you start placing your items in, they're upscale, they're sophisticated feeling, and all of a sudden you have an absolutely breathtaking room. And I want to add one last one, and that is to hang up high. A lot of times I see that people will hang too low in a small space, or they don't really use that vertical space. You'll hear that a lot from organizational tips, and I'm sure there's lots of videos out there about that too. They want to help you maximize your vertical space. Well, instead of having maybe lots of shelving up the wall, maybe I don't need to actually store lots of decorative things in the space. Maybe instead, having one really big art piece over the sofa is actually going to give me a really elegant and sophisticated style in my space, rather than having small things and then a big shelf, and then it just gets to be too much. So if you upscale, you upsize, and you place things up high, you're really filling out the entire space that you have, and it will make a huge difference. It really will. I mean, it really will. I really believe that. It will make a huge difference, and it will make you feel like it will feel like a palace. It will feel like the most amazing hotel room you've ever entered. It will feel like something so special that you just can't wait to run and jump and sit and hang out in your space, because you created something that didn't have anything to do with the size. You just used the size that you have to create something really magnificent for yourself. So I hope that these tips, my light has been changing. It has been sunny, it has poured, and now it is sunny again. I am telling you. And then, yeah, I'm having a little hard time focusing. I hope today's video has really inspired you to make the most out of your small spaces and to not let size be a deterrent to creating something that you absolutely love and you cannot wait to run and jump on the sofa and to lounge and to live your best life in your space. Don't worry about the size. You really can make the most of it. And I hope that you found this. I hope you found this video super helpful. So don't forget to hit subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and let us know down in the comments if you would like to have more small space videos. I love doing them, so it's really fun to get to talk about this stuff. And yeah, so let me know if you'd like to have more. Thank you again for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.